Welcome back, my friend, to Science in Sleeping. I'm so glad you're here tonight. And whether this is your very first time listening, or whether you've joined me before, you are part of this quiet and curious community, a community of people who, like you, are seeking gentle rest, soft learning, and maybe a little bit of comfort at the end of a long day. Tonight, we're going to take a journey together. It is both a journey into science and a journey into sleep. Our topic is one that has fascinated children, scientists, dreamers, and storytellers for generations. It is the story of the dinosaurs, the rise of these ancient giants, their astonishing diversity, and eventually, their mysterious and dramatic fall. But before we step into the world of prehistoric forests, towering creatures, and strange oceans of long ago, let's pause for a moment. Let's remember why you are here. Maybe you've had a long day full of work and worries. Maybe your mind is racing with thoughts that just won't settle. Or maybe you're simply looking for a way to drift into a peaceful night. Whatever the reason, I want you to know that this time, right here, right now, is for you. It's your chance to relax, to let go, to rest in the knowledge that you don't have to hold on to every word I say. That's the beauty of these sessions. You don't need to remember every detail. You don't need to follow the entire story. You're welcome to drift in and out, to float on the rhythm of the words. If you stay awake and learn, that's wonderful. And if you drift off into sleep, that is just as wonderful. I like to think of this space as a kind of bedtime lecture, not the kind you might have had in school, with bright lights and note-taking, but a softer kind, with gentle words and a slow pace. A lecture designed not just to teach, but to soothe, not just to inform, but to ease your mind into sleep. So, as we begin tonight's journey into the world of the dinosaurs, I invite you to get comfortable. Lie back if you can, adjust your pillow, feel the weight of your blanket, notice your breathing for a moment, slow and steady. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to achieve. Just rest, just listen, and let the gentle story carry you. And maybe, before we truly begin, I'll ask you to join me in a little community moment. I'd love to know where you're listening from, what part of the world you're in, and what time it is for you right now. Are you listening at the very end of your day, as midnight approaches, or maybe in the early hours of the morning? When the world feels especially quiet, it's a small reminder that you're not alone, that across the globe, many others are lying back in their beds too, sharing this time with you, people in different places, under different skies, but all gathered here in this same gentle moment. And so, with that, let's begin. Let's drift back through time. Let's imagine the Earth, not as it is now, but as it once was, long before cities, before people, before even the shapes of the continents we know today. A time when the air was heavy, when forests stretched endlessly, when giant creatures walked and swam and flew. This is the story of the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. And tonight, it will be our companion on the journey into rest. Have you ever wondered what it might feel like to stand on Earth millions of years ago? Not just thousands, not even hundreds of thousands, but tens of millions, when the world was filled with creatures unlike anything you've ever seen. It's a question that touches both imagination and science. A question that invites us to dream of a place both impossibly far away and yet right beneath our feet. Because the dinosaurs, though long gone, left behind their traces. And through those traces we can begin to understand their rise, their world, and eventually their fall. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself standing in a vast forest. The air is warmer and heavier than what you know, rich with moisture and scents of strange plants. The trees tower above you, but not the kinds of trees you might expect. Not oaks or pines in the way you know them, but ancient ferns, towering horsetails, and cycads with thick fronds spreading outward. The ground is alive with insects much larger than the ones buzzing around your garden today, their wings shimmering in the filtered sunlight. And then, in the distance, you feel a subtle tremor, a vibration underfoot. And as you turn, you catch sight of something enormous moving slowly between the trees. A creature unlike anything alive now, a giant herbivore, calm and deliberate, carrying its long neck high as it grazes on the leaves. This is not imagination alone, but a glimpse into a real world that once thrived here on Earth. The story of the dinosaurs begins in a time we call the Triassic period, around 230 million years ago. At that time, Earth was a place of extremes. The continents were not separated. Instead, they were joined together into one enormous landmass, a supercontinent called Pangaea. Imagine a single vast stretch of land, so wide that you could travel for months and never reach the ocean. And yet, all around the edges, the seas stretched endlessly, connecting into one great ocean called Pan. The climate of this time was harsh, with long, dry seasons, and much of the land was hot, almost desert-like. But it was in this environment that the earliest dinosaurs first appeared. They were not yet the giants we often imagine, not yet the thunderous titans of later ages, but smaller, nimble creatures, often moving on two legs, quick and adaptable. It was their adaptability that helped them survive and thrive, especially after a great extinction event cleared much of the competition. You might be surprised to know that dinosaurs did not begin as the rulers of their world. In fact, in the early Triassic, they were outnumbered by other reptiles, especially a group called the relatives of modern crocodiles. But then, something changed. Around 201 million years ago, at the end of the Triassic, Earth experienced a massive extinction event. This event wiped out many species, including most of those early crocodile-like creatures, and in the space that remained, dinosaurs flourished. They rose to fill every niche, from the small and fast to the huge and heavy, from the hunters of the plains to the gentle giants of the forests. This was the dawn of their great era, an era that would last for over 160 million years. One of the fascinating details about these creatures is how diverse they became. When we say the word dinosaur, we often imagine a single kind of animal, perhaps the fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex or the long-necked Brachiosaurus. But in truth, dinosaurs were as varied as the animals you see around you today. Some were small, no larger than chickens. Some had feathers, a reminder that birds are their living descendants. Others grew to lengths longer than a city bus, with necks stretching upward to nibble the highest branches. And some, like the armored Ankylosaurus, carried heavy plates of bone and tail clubs like living tanks. There were horned dinosaurs with elaborate frills, duck-billed dinosaurs with crests that may have made haunting sounds, and predators with sharp claws that could slice with terrifying precision. Did you know that many dinosaurs likely lived in social groups? Fossil evidence suggests herds, nesting grounds, and even parental care. For example, in some places, paleontologists have discovered entire fields of fossilized nests, with eggs carefully arranged and inside tiny bones of hatchlings, suggesting that parents may have guarded and nurtured their young, far from being solitary monsters. Many dinosaurs lived in communities, much like animals today. Think too of the skies of their time, though not dinosaurs themselves. The pterosaurs, their flying relatives, filled the air with wingspans ranging from the size of a bird to that of a small airplane. They soared over oceans, skimmed for fish, and glided above the forests, together with the early birds. They remind us that the age of dinosaurs was not only about the ground, but also the skies. The earth was alive in every dimension, on land, in water, and in the air. And so, the rise of dinosaurs is not just the story of giant creatures, but of adaptation, resilience, and diversity. For millions upon millions of years, they thrived, shaping ecosystems, dominating landscapes, and leaving behind a legacy written in stone. Each fossil bone is a word in that story. Each footprint a sentence, each layer of rock a chapter. And we, living so long after, are the quiet readers of that ancient book. There is something humbling about thinking of this. The idea that Earth has hosted such different worlds. Worlds we can only glimpse through fragments of stone and imagination. It reminds us that our time here is brief, that we are but one page in a vast unfolding story of life. And yet, we are the ones with the gift of reflection, the ability to look back, to wonder, and to feel connected across time. The dinosaurs remind us not only of change, but of continuity, that life adapts, life finds ways to survive. And though their age ended, their legacy continues, carried in the birds that sing outside your window, in the patterns of evolution that shaped us too. When you listen to the soft call of a bird at dawn, you are, in a way, hearing the faint echo of the dinosaur's song. So, as you rest tonight, let yourself imagine that forest again. The warm air, the towering ferns, the soft tremble of the earth beneath the feet of gentle giants. Let that image hold you, not as a sharp thought, but as a soft picture. A place you can visit as you drift into dreams, because sleep, too, is a journey. It is a place where past and present blur, where the mind wanders freely, where you can walk among creatures that no longer live, and yet still live in memory. May the story of the rise of dinosaurs be both a lullaby and a lesson, both a comfort and a curiosity, a reminder that the world is larger, stranger, and more beautiful than we can ever fully grasp. And now, as this chapter settles, let us drift a little further. The dinosaurs have risen, their world is alive. But their story does not end here. It stretches onward through ages of growth, into moments of triumph and challenge, and eventually toward the great mysteries of how such mighty creatures could vanish. But for now, let's stay gentle. Let's take this step by step, and soon we will walk further into the Mesozoic world together. Have you ever wondered what the Earth itself might have looked like before the dinosaurs became kings of the land? Not the creatures this time, but the planet beneath their feet. The land, the oceans, the skies, it's easy to imagine dinosaurs as timeless, as if they simply appeared and reigned forever. But their story is not so simple. The Earth itself was shifting, cracking, and reshaping, and those changes opened doors for the dinosaurs to rise. It was a planet alive, not only with animals and plants, but with fire, storms, and endless movement deep beneath the surface. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a vast desert plain. The horizon stretches so far you can almost see the curve of the earth. The ground beneath you is cracked and red, baked by endless sun. But if you close your eyes, you can feel it, a vibration, a slow heartbeat. But to the earth itself, because deep beneath your feet, the great supercontinent of Pangaea is restless. Its crust is groaning and shifting, its plates sliding and colliding in a slow-motion dance. Mountains rise, valleys collapse, oceans widen and shrink. The earth is never still. And in this restless stage, the future of the dinosaurs is being written. The Triassic world was strange. The land was united. Yet the climate was unforgiving. Hot summers burned the soil. Winters chilled the highlands. And rains came rarely. Many regions were dry deserts, dotted with hardy plants that clung to life, and yet, in scattered pockets, lush forests thrived near rivers and coasts. It was in these scattered oases that life fought to grow. And in those places, the early dinosaurs began their journey. But they were not alone. Strange reptiles walked the ground, some armored with plates, others moving like quick lizards in the rivers. Fish darted and strange amphibians rose to the surface with wide eyes. Above, insect wings shimmered. Dragonflies larger than a man's hand darting through the heavy air. It was a world of competition, every creature fighting for survival. And the dinosaurs, at first, were not the victors, but the survivors clinging to opportunity. One of the most suspenseful turns in this story is the moment when the Earth itself cleared the stage. At the end of the Triassic period, about 201 million years ago, disaster struck. The cause, scientists believe, was massive volcanic activity. The Earth split open, spilling rivers of molten rock across the land. Clouds of ash darkened the skies. Poisonous gases filled the air. The climate shifted violently. Plants withered, oceans turned acidic, and countless species vanished. It was one of the great extinction events in Earth's history, and though terrifying, it was this catastrophe that opened the path for dinosaurs to rule. Imagine the suspense of that moment. Entire lineages that had dominated for millions of years were suddenly gone. The mighty Pseudotsuchians, the crocodile-like rulers of the time, were nearly wiped away, and in their absence, the dinosaurs, small, fast, and adaptable, stepped into the empty spaces. They were not the largest, not the fiercest, but they were resilient. And in a changing, unstable world, resilience was the key from that moment on. Their rise was unstoppable. They began to diversify rapidly. Some grew long legs for running. Others grew powerful jaws for hunting. Some stretched their necks to reach high leaves. Others shrank and darted into hidden places. Each adaptation was like a piece of a puzzle, and together the pieces formed a picture of dominance. The Earth, once filled with many contenders, now belonged to the dinosaurs. Did you know that the earliest dinosaurs were mostly small? Some were no bigger than a dog, light on their feet, with sharp teeth and keen eyes. They may not have seemed impressive, not at first glance, but their advantage lay in speed, in agility, in the ability to survive where others could not. Step by step, generation by generation, they grew bolder, larger, and more varied, and soon, what began as small, shadowy hunters became herds of giants, moving like mountains across the plains. Think for a moment about what it must have been like to witness such a transformation. One era ending in fire and ash, the next unfolding in new life. The earth as a stage where the cast is replaced, and the play begins again. We often imagine extinction as only tragedy, but in nature it is also opportunity. The fall of one group makes space for another to rise, and in the silence left by the fallen, the voices of the survivors grow louder. The dinosaurs rose not because they were destined, but because they endured. And there is something strangely comforting in that thought, that survival is not always about strength or size. Sometimes it is about patience, adaptability, and timing. As the Jurassic period dawned, the dinosaurs began to step fully into their power. Forests grew greener and more expansive. Climates shifted into wetter patterns. The deserts retreated in many places. Rivers carved valleys, and life flourished. And within these new landscapes, dinosaurs spread into every corner of the earth. Some thundered across the plains in herds so large they shook the ground. Others lurked in forests, swift and quiet, stalking prey. Still others took to the skies in the form of their bird-like kin. It was an unfolding golden age, and the suspense of their story was only just beginning. There's a quiet beauty in thinking about this moment in history, a time when life teetered on the edge of destruction, and yet, from the ashes, new wonders emerged. It speaks to cycles, to endings and beginnings, and perhaps it mirrors something in your own life. The way moments of collapse can give birth to unexpected renewal. The way, even in the darkest seasons, something waits to rise. The dinosaurs remind us of this truth, that life continues, always, reshaping itself into forms both strange and beautiful, and that even in extinction there is the whisper of possibility. So, as you lie here listening, let your mind drift to that ancient world. The red deserts of Pangaea stretching endlessly, the crack of distant volcanoes spilling rivers of fire, the dark clouds that once choked the skies, and then picture the silence that followed, the empty spaces where creatures once ruled, and finally the slow, quiet rise of the dinosaurs. Stepping cautiously into their new world, it is a suspenseful moment, a turning point in the story of life. And, like all turning points, it carries both loss and promise. Let that duality comfort you, because even as the past reminds us of endings, it also whispers of beginnings, and in that rhythm we find rest. Now, as we close this part of the story, let's step gently into the next. The dinosaurs have risen. The world is reshaped. The stage is set. But what comes next is not merely survival, but greatness. Creatures of unimaginable size and power. Ecosystems unlike anything we know. A flourishing of life that still astonishes us today. So settle deeper. Let your breathing slow, and soon we'll walk into the heart of the Jurassic, where the dinosaurs truly become giants. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to look up far above your head and see not the tallest building or the tallest tree, but a living creature, a neck stretching so high it vanishes into the canopy. A creature so massive that the ground seems to sigh beneath its steps, and yet so gentle it spends its days grazing quietly on leaves. This was the world of the Jurassic period, the golden age of the dinosaurs, a time when size itself became a survival strategy, when life pushed the limits of what was possible, and Earth became home to giants. Picture yourself in a wide valley. It is lush and green, with rivers winding like silver ribbons through the land. The air is heavy with warmth and the scent of wet vegetation. Towering conifers stretch into the sky, their trunks straight and strong, their branches tipped with sharp needles around them. Ferns form thick carpets, and cycads rise like ancient palms. Above, the sky is alive with winged creatures, pterosaurs gliding in slow arcs, their wings catching the sun, and across the valley floor you see them, immense sauropods, their long necks weaving gently as they graze from tree to tree, their tails stretch behind them like living bridges. Swaying with each step, you hear the low, resonant sound of their calls, deep vibrations that seem to rumble through your chest. It is a world of giants, and you are standing at the heart of it. The Jurassic period began around 201 million years ago, after the great extinction that cleared the stage at the end of the Triassic, and in this new chapter, life flourished in abundance. The Earth's climate grew wetter, forests spread, and new ecosystems bloomed across the continents and into this fertile world. The dinosaurs expanded, their bodies grew larger, their forms more diverse, their presence more dominant. Among them, the sauropods became icons of size, creatures like Brachiosaurus, with necks that rose like living towers, or Diplodocus, with tails that cracked like whips. Some of these animals stretched more than 25 meters from nose to tail. Imagine standing beside one, its head rising above you like the top of a building, its shadow stretching long over the ground. It is almost beyond comprehension. And yet they were real. Why did they grow so large? You might wonder. Part of the answer lies in the plants. The Jurassic forests were dense with vegetation, tall conifers and cycads offering food high above the ground by growing long necks. The sauropods could reach what others could not, and by growing huge bodies, they could digest vast amounts of tough plant matter. Their stomachs were like great fermentation chambers, breaking down leaves and needles into energy, and their sheer size offered protection. Few predators would dare to challenge a creature the size of a building. Size was safety, and size was success. But it was not only plant eaters who thrived. The Jurassic also gave rise to mighty predators, creatures like Allosaurus, swift and deadly, its sharp teeth and claws honed for the hunt. Unlike the later Tyrannosaurus, Allosaurus was lighter, more agile, a pack hunter perhaps. Imagine the suspense of watching one stalk its prey, the quiet steps through the forest, the sudden rush, the clash of predator and giant. Every encounter a battle of survival. In this world, even the mightiest were never entirely safe. Did you know that many scientists believe sauropods may have lived in herds? Imagine not just one giant, but dozens, moving together across the land like a living river, the ground trembling beneath their steps, their long necks swaying in rhythm. Herds of giants protecting their young, traveling to new feeding grounds. It must have been a breathtaking sight. And above them, in the skies, another marvel was unfolding. The pterosaurs, masters of flight, expanded into forms more diverse than ever. Some no larger than sparrows, others with wingspans longer than a car. They soared along coastlines, glided across valleys, and hunted fish from the oceans. The sky itself became a kingdom of reptiles, and in their shadows, the earliest birds were beginning to take shape, feathered, delicate, experimenting with the mechanics of flight. The link between dinosaurs and birds was already whispering its secret. Long before we discovered it, life in the Jurassic was not only about the spectacular, but also the strange. There were stegosaurids, with their rows of plates rising like sails along their backs. Some believe those plates helped regulate body temperature, others that they were for display, and at the end of their tails, fearsome spikes called thagomizers, ready to defend against predators. There were small dinosaurs too, nimble and quick, darting among the giants, and countless plants and insects, creating the foundation of this vibrant world. It was an age of abundance, an age where life experimented boldly, and the dinosaurs were at the center of it all. There's a kind of poetry in the idea of giants walking the earth. It awakens something in us, a sense of awe, a reminder of how small we are. And yet, instead of fear, there is comfort in that thought, to know that life has taken such magnificent forms, to know that Earth has carried so many wonders. It makes our own worries feel lighter. The stress of today, the weight of tomorrow, they shrink in comparison to the span of millions of years. And perhaps that is why we return to these stories, not only to learn, but to remember that we are part of something larger, that the earth has a rhythm of its own, a rhythm that continues whether we notice or not. And in that rhythm there is peace. Let yourself imagine the night falling over that Jurassic Valley, the last light slipping behind the horizon, the forest humming with unseen creatures, the sauropods settling down, their vast bodies resting among the trees, the predators watching quietly, eyes glinting in the half-dark, waiting for the right moment. Above, the stars emerge, unfamiliar yet eternal, the same stars you see now, though the constellations have shifted. The earth turns, the night deepens, and the giants dream, and you too may drift into dreams, carried by the slow heartbeat of that ancient world. And yet, even in this golden age, change was always near. The earth does not stand still, and neither does life. New species rose, while others vanished. Ecosystems shifted, climates transformed, oceans encroached and retreated. The story of the dinosaurs was always one of movement, of rise and fall. But for now, in the Jurassic, we linger with the giants. We rest among them. We marvel at their scale. We let their presence remind us of the mystery of time. And as we close this chapter, we prepare for what comes next. Because the Jurassic was not the end, but the middle. The story still stretches onward, toward new landscapes, new challenges, and eventually, new catastrophes. But that will come in time. For now, let yourself rest with the giants. Let their shadows soothe you, their sighs remind you that you are small, but safe. And let this ancient world carry you a little deeper into sleep. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to stand at the edge of a primeval sea? To watch waves crash against a shoreline where no human has ever set foot? And from the water's depths to see shapes emerge that are at once familiar and utterly alien. Long jaws breaking the surface, wings soaring above, and on land behind you. the silhouettes of dinosaurs, stranger than anything your imagination has conjured. This was the world of the Cretaceous period, the longest and perhaps the most extraordinary chapter in the age of the dinosaurs. Imagine yourself standing on a beach. The air is warm. The sea stretches endlessly before you. But this is not the ocean you know today. This is an inland sea, cutting straight through the heart of a continent. Its waters shallow but vast, filled with life. Above you, pterosaurs wheel and dive, some with wingspans wider than a small airplane. Their cries echo across the waves, a haunting chorus carried by the wind. And on the sand beside you, the tracks of dinosaurs press deep into the wet ground, some small and bird-like, others heavy and broad. The land and the sea, the sky and the earth, all alive with forms that push the imagination to its very edge. The Cretaceous began about 145 million years ago, and it lasted until the Great Extinction 66 million years ago. It was an age of expansion and change. The continents, once joined, were breaking apart, drifting slowly toward the shapes we recognize today. Seas flooded lowlands, climates shifted, and ecosystems diversified in astonishing ways. And within this changing world, the dinosaurs reached their peak. The largest, the strangest, the most elaborate forms appeared, as if life itself was experimenting with every possibility. Picture a forest clearing out of the trees' steps a triceratops. Its massive frill rises like a shield, its 3 horns gleaming in the dappled light. Behind it, others move in herds, grazing and calling to one another, their bodies heavy, their presence commanding. But they are not alone. Lurking beyond the trees is a predator, one of the most famous of all time, Tyrannosaurus rex. Its massive head sways as it moves, jaws filled with teeth like sharpened knives, its eyes fixed, its breath low and steady. It is a hunter at the very top of the chain, and the suspense of their world was written in every encounter like this. The constant tension of predator and prey, survival and loss. But the Cretaceous was not only about the great and the fearsome, it was also about the strange. There were duck-billed hadrosaurs, with long crests rising from their heads, some crests hollow, like resonating chambers, able to produce low, mournful calls that echoed through valleys. Whole herds of them may have moved together, their voices blending into a chorus that carried for miles. There were armored dinosaurs, their backs covered with plates of bone, their tails ending in clubs, heavy enough to shatter the legs of attackers. There were horned dinosaurs beyond Triceratops, with frills decorated in spikes, hooks, and patterns so elaborate they seem like artwork carved by the earth itself. And there were the smallest, feathered dinosaurs, darting among the branches, some gliding, some already flapping their wings in true flight. The line between dinosaur and bird was blurring, and in the skies, the future was being written, feather by feather. Did you know that flowers first appeared in the Cretaceous? Before this time, the Earth's greenery was dominated by ferns, cycads, and conifers. But now, delicate blooms began to dot the landscape. Bright petals, attracting insects, bees, were evolving too, drawn to nectar, spreading pollen. The earth was becoming more colorful, more fragrant, more intricate, and with these flowers came new relationships. Dinosaurs with specialized diets may have nibbled them. Insects carried their seeds, Birds found perches among their branches. The world was changing not only in size and strangeness, but in subtle beauty, and all of it shaped the lives of the dinosaurs. Think of the suspense that must have filled the air in a Cretaceous swamp. Huge, crocodile-like predators lurking beneath the water. Pterosaurs gliding low over the surface. Small feathered hunters darting through reeds. And above it all, the sounds, calls, footsteps, crashes of giants moving through the trees. It was a world alive at every level, every sound a story, every movement a reminder that life here was both fragile and fierce. And then there is the sea. Because the Cretaceous seas were kingdoms of their own. Imagine mosasaurs, giant marine reptiles with jaws like sharks and bodies like serpents. They glided through the waters, their tails powering them forward with terrifying speed. They hunted fish, turtles, even other marine reptiles. Alongside them swam plesiosaurs, with long necks that twisted gracefully through the water, and fish larger than cars, their scales glinting like metal. The oceans were not safe, they were worlds of suspense. As deadly and alive as the land, there's a kind of awe in realizing how diverse life became in this age. The earth seemed to pour its creativity into every corner. Horns, frills, clubs, crests, feathers, sails, an endless array of adaptations, and each adaptation was a response to survival, to climate, to predators, to competition. It was not random, but purposeful, and yet, to us, it feels like art, the art of evolution, painted across millions of years. As you rest here listening, let yourself feel the mystery of it, the idea that entire worlds rose and fell long before us, that creatures stranger than our myths once walked and flew and swam, and though they are gone, their echoes remain, in the birds that call at dawn, in the flowers that bloom each spring, in the fossils that sleep beneath stone. The Cretaceous is not only history, it is also presence. It shaped the earth we live on, and the life we share it with, and in that thought, there is both wonder and comfort. Now picture night falling over a Cretaceous plain, the last glow of sunlight fading, the sky filling with unfamiliar stars, the herd of hadrosaurs gathering close, their low calls vibrating through the dark, predators lurking at the edge of sight, their silhouettes silent against the horizon, the air humming with insects, the ground alive with quiet movements, the sea beyond reflecting the moonlight. It is a suspenseful world, and yet a peaceful one, a world that invites you to drift into dreams, just as the giants themselves may have rested under those ancient stars. And as we close this chapter, we know the suspense only deepens because the Cretaceous, as magnificent as it was, did not last forever. Its wonders rose to their height, and then, in one of the most dramatic endings in Earth's history, they were silenced, but not yet. Not now, for now we remain in their world, with the flowers blooming, the seas alive, the horns and crests gleaming in the sun. We linger with them at the peak of their reign, and soon, gently, we will step toward the mystery of their fall. But tonight, let the giants guard your rest. Let the seas rock you like a cradle, and let the story of the Cretaceous carry you deeper into sleep. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stand in the last days of an age, to breathe the air of a world that does not yet know its time is running short, to look around and see strength and beauty everywhere, and yet, hidden beneath the surface, to sense an approaching silence. This was the world of the dinosaurs in the final stretch of the Cretaceous. Imagine yourself walking across a vast open plain. The ground is firm beneath your feet. Grasses, as we know them, have not yet spread. Instead, the land is decorated with ferns, cycads, and flowering plants new to the earth. In the distance, you see movement. A herd of colossal hadrosaurs, duck-billed giants, grazing as they slowly shift across the land. Their calls echoing like musical notes carried by the wind. Beside them, young ones trot awkwardly, their bodies still growing into the shape of survival. Above, a shadow passes. You look up to see a pterosaur, its vast wings gliding silently, its eye sharp and unblinking. The plain feels alive, rich, vibrant, and yet, beneath it all, there is a hum of suspense, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. The late Cretaceous, some 70 million years ago, was a world at its height. The continents were drifting closer to their present positions. Mountains rose, seas spread wide, and ecosystems flourished. Dinosaurs filled every niche of life, from tiny bird-like hunters no larger than a crow, to giants like Alamosaurus, stretching nearly the length of a blue whale. Never before had their diversity been greater. It seemed as though they were unstoppable, and yet history was quietly writing a different fate. Picture a dense forest at dusk. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. A triceratops moves slowly through the undergrowth, its frill brushing against low branches. It pauses to listen. The forest is never silent. The chirps of insects, the rustle of small lizards in the leaves, the distant cry of a bird-like dinosaur calling to its mate. But tonight there is something more. A low vibration, footsteps, heavy, deliberate. The predator emerges, a Tyrannosaurus rex, towering, its eyes locked on its target. The tension is immediate, primal. The Triceratops exhales, its breath steaming in the cool night. The forest holds its suspense, and you, standing there unseen, can feel the weight of survival pressing on every heartbeat. The great predators of the time were not only fierce hunters but also scavengers. Tyrannosaurus, for all its fame as a killer, may have spent much of its life feeding on carcasses. Its nose was powerful, able to detect the scent of decay miles away. Its teeth were not just sharp, but strong enough to crush bone, even in death. Creatures of the Cretaceous fed life. The cycle continued, endless, relentless. And yet, in this endlessness, something fragile lingered. A fragility that would soon be exposed. Did you know that the Cretaceous skies were ruled not only by pterosaurs, but by some of the earliest true birds, small, feathered, agile, their wings beating quickly as they darted through branches? They nested in trees, cared for their young. Some already resembled the sparrows and crows you see today. The age of dinosaurs was, in many ways, already giving birth to the age of birds. And as time carried forward, these small survivors would inherit the sky, unaware of the cataclysm that would one day sweep their larger cousins away. Let us step to the edge of a great inland sea. The waters stretch wide, shimmering under the afternoon sun. Beneath the surface, shadows twist and glide. Mosasaurs, the undisputed rulers of the oceans. With jaws lined in rows of sharp teeth, they strike with terrifying speed. Nearby, Schools of fish scatter, turtles paddle slowly, and long-necked plesiosaurs weave among the currents. Above the water, pterosaurs dive, snatching prey with ease. It is a vibrant, dangerous kingdom, every moment balanced on suspense. Every life dependent on chance, instinct, and the relentless rules of nature. The world of the late Cretaceous was a paradox. It seemed strong, stable, eternal, and yet the earth was restless beneath. Volcanoes erupted in distant lands, filling the skies with ash, seas rose and fell. Climates shifted in subtle ways to the dinosaurs. These changes may have seemed ordinary, for they had endured millions of years of such fluctuations. But slowly, quietly, pressures were building. Pressures no creature could foresee. Now imagine night falling. You are lying in a clearing. The sky vast above you, the stars glimmer, patterns different from those we know today, perhaps even brighter, untouched by pollution. Somewhere in the darkness, a herd of ceratopsians stirs, their movements steady, their calls low and rhythmic. Far off, the night is filled with suspense, with the sounds of survival. And yet you feel the comfort of belonging to a world so ancient, a world that once breathed and dreamed beneath these same stars. And still, the question lingers. What does it feel like to live in the last days of greatness? Do the dinosaurs sense it? Do the seas whisper of endings? Or is the world, in all its beauty, simply carrying on, unaware that an event is drawing near, an event that will silence nearly everything in an instant? There is a strange comfort in knowing how fleeting even the grandest reign can be. The dinosaurs, in their magnificence, in their diversity, in their sheer abundance, seemed unshakable, and yet all it took was a single moment, a single strike from the heavens, to change everything. But that moment is still to come. For now, we linger in their world. We walk with them across plains and forests. We hear their calls. We see their shadows move beneath the waves. We rest beneath their stars, suspense building, mystery deepening. As we approach the quiet edge of history, let yourself drift deeper with this thought, that life is always both strong and fragile, that even in its height it carries the seeds of change. And though endings come, they are never the end. For from endings rise beginnings. From the fall of giants came the rise of birds, of mammals, of us. The story continues, endless as the night sky. And in that there is peace. So as you close your eyes, imagine yourself resting in that ancient plain, surrounded by creatures vast and strange. The air alive with suspense, the earth humming with unseen destiny, and let their world guide you gently into sleep. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to stand on the last ordinary day of the dinosaurs? To breathe the air of a world that seems eternal, to hear the familiar calls of hadrosaurs, the rustle of ferns, the distant cries of predators, and not know that everything is about to change, that in just one moment, the balance of life will be rewritten forever. Picture yourself in a tranquil Cretaceous meadow. The sky above is blue, filled with drifting clouds. A herd of horned dinosaurs grazes nearby, their young moving close beside them. Insects buzz softly in the warm air. Birds, small and feathered, flit between branches, their wings catching the light. It feels like any other day. The earth is alive, steady, timeless, and yet high above the sky, far beyond sight. Something is moving closer, faster, more unstoppable than anything life has ever faced. 66 million years ago, a rock from space, more than 6 miles wide, entered Earth's atmosphere. It came from deep in the cosmos, a wanderer of unimaginable age, traveling faster than a bullet, faster than sound itself, and when it struck, it carried more energy than billions of atomic bombs combined. The dinosaurs below could not see it, could not prepare. To them, the world was as it had always been. But in an instant, the sky ignited, the horizon suddenly glowing with a light brighter than the sun. A streak cuts across the sky, blinding, impossible to look at, and then a sound, a roar so deep it feels as though the earth itself is breaking apart. The ground shakes, the air shudders, the sea rushes backward, drawn away before an unstoppable wave. You are small, powerless, and the world itself seems to collapse around you. The asteroid struck near what is today the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. At a place now called Chicxulub, the impact carved a crater more than 100 miles wide. In the first instant, rock and air turned to fire. Mountains melted, oceans boiled, forests exploded into flame. Creatures near the impact had no chance. They were vaporized in the blink of an eye, and the shock waves rippled outward. Hurricanes of heat and wind swept across the land. Even thousands of miles away, the ground quaked and the skies burned. Did you know that some scientists believe glassy beads of molten rock rained down all over the planet? Tiny fragments thrown into the sky by the explosion. They glowed as they fell, heating the air. So much heat that forests everywhere may have ignited at once. Imagine a world where the night sky does not bring cool darkness, but instead a fiery glow, as if the heavens themselves have turned against the earth. And yet, the suspense did not end with the impact, for the worst was still to come. When the asteroid struck, it threw dust, soot, and sulfur into the atmosphere. Billions of tons of debris rose high, carried into the upper air. The sky darkened, days turned dim, then cold. Sunlight struggled to reach the surface. Plants withered, flowers closed. The green fabric of life itself began to unravel. Herbivores starved first, their food disappearing, and without them, the predators followed. A great chain reaction of hunger and silence spread across the globe. Now picture a late Cretaceous forest under this dim sky, the once bright canopy, now gray, leaves drooping, branches bare. Alone, and Calosaur stumbles, its armored body weakened by hunger. Nearby, a small pack of feathered raptors moves quietly, not in triumph, but in desperation. Their movements are sluggish, their eyes hollow with need. The forest is still, and the silence feels endless, as if the world itself is holding its breath. The oceans, too, suffered. Phytoplankton, the tiny plants of the sea, depended on sunlight. Without it, they died. And with them went the base of the marine food chain, mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, giant fish. All fell into decline. The seas, once alive with color and movement, became graveyards of drifting bodies. Suspense hung over every wave, every ripple, as if the oceans themselves mourned. And yet, even in this darkness, small flickers of survival remained. Crocodiles, able to endure long stretches without food, hid in rivers, turtles buried themselves in mud. Mammals, small and quick, scurried underground, feeding on seeds and insects, and above all, birds. Descendants of small feathered dinosaurs found refuge, eating what little remained. Sheltering in trees, their songs, faint but steady, carried the story of resilience forward. Life was battered, but not broken. Think of the suspense of those years, every sunrise uncertain, every shadow holding the question of survival. For countless species, the answer was no. The great dinosaurs, the rulers of Earth for more than 150 million years. One by one, their voices faded, their footsteps ceased, until only silence remained where herds once thundered. The world was emptied of giants, and yet, in that silence, the seeds of a new story began to grow. Let us return for a moment to the night of the impact. Imagine lying beneath that fiery sky, the air hot, filled with ash and sound, your heart racing, unsure if morning will ever come. And now imagine drifting slowly into sleep, knowing that even as worlds end, others begin, that from endings rise new dawns, and that, though the dinosaurs fell, life itself endured, and in time it would rise again in forms strange and familiar, until one day, millions of years later, here we are, looking back into that night, wondering, remembering, learning. So as you rest now, let the story of that impact settle gently into your thoughts, a reminder of both fragility and endurance, a tale of suspense, of endings and beginnings. The dinosaurs are gone, their world shattered, but their echoes remain in every bird that sings at dawn, in every fossil that sleeps beneath stone, and in the wonder you feel tonight as you drift deeper, carried by the mystery of time. The stars above you unchanged, the earth beneath you steady, and your dreams alive with the memory of a world transformed. Have you ever wondered what the world feels like after an ending? Not the moment of catastrophe itself, but the stillness that follows. When the roar has faded, the fires have dimmed, and only silence remains. A silence so vast that it seems to swallow even memory. This was Earth in the first days after the great impact. The dinosaurs were gone, the skies were dark, and the planet itself seemed to mourn. Imagine yourself standing in a forest clearing. The trees are blackened, their leaves gone, their trunks scorched. The air is heavy with the scent of smoke and ash. The ground beneath you is littered with fallen branches, the usual chorus of insects, birds, and distant footsteps has vanished. Instead, there is only stillness, a haunting quiet broken only by the faint crackle of dying embers. It feels as though the world has paused, as though time itself is unsure whether to move forward. The first weeks after the impact were a time of darkness. So much dust and soot had risen into the atmosphere that sunlight struggled to reach the ground. The days were dim, gray, as though twilight had stretched endlessly. Temperatures dropped, plants withered without plants. The herbivores starved without herbivores. The predators fell to, and yet, in this fragile, suspended world, a few survivors endured. Picture a small mammal, no larger than your hand. It scurries through the undergrowth, its fur damp with dew. Its tiny nose twitches as it digs for seeds buried beneath the soil. Seeds that had waited silently, protected by their shells. This little creature finds nourishment where giants could not. It hides in burrows, sheltered from the cold, and it endures. Though the world above lies broken, life below clings to possibility. Did you know that crocodiles, too, survived while giants fell? These armored reptiles endured in rivers and swamps. They could slow their bodies, live without food for months. They drifted in the water, still and patient, waiting for the world to heal. And turtles, silent guardians of time, buried in mud, sealed away in shells, they too held on. A reminder that survival often belongs not to the mighty, but to the quiet, the adaptable, the unseen. Imagine walking along the shore of a once living sea. The waves roll in softly, carrying fragments of charred wood and broken shells. But beneath the surface, silence stretches deep. The mosasaurs, the plesiosaurs, the great fish are gone. The sea feels empty, hollow. Its kingdom of predators vanished in the blink of an eye. And yet, in the plankton, tiny survivors stir. Invisible threads of hope weaving slowly back into the water. The ocean whispers that it will not be empty forever. The suspense of this age was not in great battles or roaring predators, but in the question whispered across every dawn: what will survive? What life will take root again? And what will vanish into the shadows of memory? The earth itself seemed uncertain. Every sunrise a fragile experiment. Every living thing a spark flickering against the dark. Picture a night in this new world. The stars above shine brighter than ever, for the smoke has begun to thin, and slowly the heavens reappear. On the ground below, the silence remains, but in that silence, tiny movements stir. A mammal shifts in its burrow. A bird calls softly from a hidden branch. It is not much, not compared to the thundering footsteps of dinosaurs, but it is something. A heartbeat, a breath, a whisper of life. The beginning of something new. And still, the suspense deepens, because survival is never guaranteed. The air is cold. Food is scarce. Predators still linger in shadows. A crocodile waiting in a dark river. A bird searching desperately for insects. A mammal risking its life for a single seed. The line between survival and extinction is thin, and every creature walks it, step by fragile step. Did you know that in the ash-filled years after the impact, fungi flourished with so much dead plant matter? Fungi spread like a silent army, breaking down what had fallen, feeding on decay. It was the age of mushrooms, of spores carried quietly on the wind. They thrived where others starved, and in their quiet way, they prepared the soil for new life, turning death into nourishment, laying the groundwork for forests yet to come. Imagine returning to the forest clearing where once dinosaurs thundered. Now it is quiet, but in the cracks of scorched earth, tiny shoots push upward, delicate green, fragile yet stubborn. The first leaves tremble in the wind, a promise that the world is not finished, that even in endings, beginnings take root. And so, this was the world without dinosaurs, a planet of silence, of ash, of suspense, but also of resilience. The mighty had fallen, but the small endured, the overlooked, the underestimated. They carried the spark forward through cold nights and gray days, through hunger and stillness, until, little by little, the earth began to breathe again. Let yourself drift deeper with this thought, that survival does not always belong to the strongest, but to the quiet, the patient, the adaptable, that even in the silence of endings, whispers of life remain, and those whispers grow, until they become voices, and then songs, and then entire worlds of sound again. The dinosaurs were gone, but life was not, and from the ashes of their fall, a new story was beginning to rise. So, as you rest now, imagine yourself lying under those ancient stars, the earth quiet around you, the air cool, the ground soft with ash above. The constellations glow with mystery below. Tiny sparks of life shift in the shadows, the suspense of survival carrying the world forward, step by step, breath by breath, until dawn returns, and with it, the first fragile promise of tomorrow. Have you ever noticed how the quiet after a storm feels more fragile than the storm itself? How the silence carries its own kind of weight, as if the world is holding its breath. This was the Earth in the years after the Great Impact. The dinosaurs were gone, the skies still heavy with ash. But somewhere beneath the silence, something was stirring, not loud, not dramatic, but soft, patient, and persistent. The first whispers of renewal. Picture the land, still scarred. Blackened forests, fallen giants, rivers choked with debris, yet in the cracks of the soil, green shoots push upward, tiny leaves trembling in the cold wind, their roots stretching into the ash, drawing life from what had fallen. Each leaf a fragile declaration that the world was not finished, that endings do not last forever. The mammals, small and overlooked in the time of dinosaurs, began to move cautiously through this new landscape, their bodies warmed by fur, their lives carried in burrows, nests, and hidden places. They ate what others had ignored, seeds, roots, insects, fungi. They scurried at night, hiding by day, and slowly, quietly, their numbers grew. The suspense was not whether life would return, but what shape it would take, which creatures would rise to claim the empty spaces, and how they would survive in a world still haunted by silence. Imagine standing at the edge of a swamp, the water dark, the air cool. From beneath the surface, a crocodile rises slowly, its eyes glinting just above the water. This ancient survivor had seen the fall of the dinosaurs and remained unchanged, a predator patient enough to wait. Still, silent, eternal, it had no need to adapt quickly, for it was already suited to survival, a reminder that sometimes the oldest ways endure longest. And then there were the birds, delicate creatures with hollow bones, descendants of the dinosaurs themselves. Some vanished with their great cousins, but others endured, sheltering in hidden groves, feeding on seeds, their wings beating softly in the dim skies. At night, their calls echoed faintly, lonely songs drifting across the darkened forests, each note carrying the memory of what was lost and the promise of what was to come. Did you know that in this age of shadow, seeds buried deep underground became treasures? They had waited in silence, sealed against cold and darkness. When the skies cleared even slightly, they began to sprout. Forests slowly crept back, grasses whispered across plains, flowers opened cautiously. The earth was painting itself green again, stroke by fragile stroke, and in their shelter, new worlds of life began to emerge. Picture a night where the air is filled not with the thunder of dinosaurs, but with the scurrying of small mammals. They search the forest floor for food, their whiskers brushing against damp leaves. Above, a bird shifts in the branches, its feathers rustling softly. In the water nearby, turtles stir, moving with ancient patience, and beneath the soil, fungi spread unseen, breaking down what was lost, feeding what was new. The suspense of this world is subtle. It is not the battle of giants, but the quiet question of survival, the fragile balance between hunger and hope. The oceans, too, began their slow renewal. After the great silence, plankton returned, tiny, unseen, drifting in currents, and with them came small fish, then larger ones, until, at last, the sea once again carried life within its depths. The mosasaurs and plesiosaurs were gone forever. But the ocean did not remain empty. It began to breathe again, each wave carrying the pulse of renewal across the shore. Imagine yourself standing on a hill overlooking this changing world. The air is still cool, but less heavy with ash. The stars above burn bright, guiding the earth through its long night. You can feel the tension in the land below. Every creature is a survivor. Every step they take is a gamble. And yet the world is alive again, a fragile, trembling life, but life nonetheless. Did you know that the mammals of this age remained small for millions of years? No larger than foxes or raccoons, they lived cautiously in shadows. But their possibilities stretched endlessly before them, for the giants who once ruled were gone, and the world was theirs to grow into. A suspenseful waiting, a long preparation for the age to come, an age when their footsteps would no longer be silent. Picture the earth in these moments, still scarred, still uncertain, but carrying within its silence a secret that life always finds a way forward, that endings are beginnings wrapped in shadow, that even in the deepest night the dawn waits patiently. This was not yet the dawn of mammals, not yet the world you know, but the whispers of renewal had begun, and they would only grow louder with time. So as you rest now, let yourself imagine lying in the stillness of this world, the air cool, the stars bright, the ground soft with ash. Around you, tiny creatures stir in shadows. Birds shift in branches, crocodiles drift in rivers. The suspense of survival hums quietly in the night. And above it all, the earth breathes, slowly, steadily, carrying its survivors into tomorrow, a tomorrow built from patience, from silence, from whispers of renewal. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stand in a doorway, one foot in darkness, one in light? Not yet fully arrived, not yet fully gone. That is where the earth stood after the fall of the dinosaurs. The giants were gone, but the age that followed was not yet born. It was a world of shadows becoming shapes, of small creatures daring to stretch into something new. Picture the forest floor at night, moonlight spilling through thin canopies, ash still clinging to the soil. The silence is alive with tiny movements, soft rustles, quick dashes, the faint sound of claws scratching bark. These are mammals, once the background characters of Earth's stage, now moving cautiously into the open. They are small, no bigger than mice or squirrels, but in their bodies lies possibility, an invitation to grow, to change, to become something the world has never seen. The suspense of this age was quiet, for in every hidden burrow, every whispered scurry, the seeds of the future were being planted. Would these small survivors remain forever in shadows? Or would they dare to claim the open world, to fill the silence left by the thunder of dinosaurs? Did you know that mammals of this time came in many secret forms? Some were insect eaters, darting in the night to snap up beetles. Some were root nibblers, digging into the recovering soil. Others were gliders, stretching thin membranes of skin, sailing between branches like whispers in the dark, each one an experiment, a quiet rehearsal for roles the earth had not yet written. Imagine standing at the edge of a meadow under starlight. You hear the chirping of insects, the soft trickle of water, and then a shadow moves. A small mammal creeps out, sniffing the air, its fur glistening faintly, its eyes wide, reflecting the moon. It pauses, listening, because though the dinosaurs were gone, danger was not. Crocodiles still waded in rivers, snakes still slithered through grass, and in the shadows, giant birds stalked on silent feet. Predators that had survived the end, hunters who knew that the new rulers of the earth were small, vulnerable, and many. This was the suspense of survival. Not a war of titans, but a nightly gamble. Every meal won was a step forward. Every misstep could mean silence forever. And yet, through the long years, these mammals continued to grow braver. Their teeth sharpened, their senses sharpened. They learned to climb higher, to burrow deeper, to use the shadows not only for hiding but for thriving. The earth itself seemed to be watching. Forests spreading again, rivers clearing, the air warming after years of chill. The stage was being prepared, the light growing stronger, and in that light, these shadows were beginning to take shape. Did you know that one of the early mammals, no larger than a rat, would one day give rise to whales, elephants, lions, and humans? From something so small, so fragile, came the endless diversity of life you see today. At the time, it seemed impossible. But the world was full of suspenseful possibilities. Each heartbeat carrying a secret future, each shadow hiding a shape not yet revealed. Picture yourself lying in the grass of that long-ago meadow, the stars above burning steady, the ground alive with faint vibrations. You hear scurrying nearby, cautious but determined. A creature pauses close to you, its breath quick, its ears twitching. It does not know it carries the destiny of giants. It only knows hunger, danger, survival. But the earth knows more. The earth holds its breath, waiting for these shadows to step fully into their shapes. As the forests grew denser, some mammals began to climb, clutching bark, leaping between branches. Their world was one of height and daring, the suspense of falling always close. Yet, with every leap, they claimed a new dimension of life. Others returned to the ground, running faster, digging deeper, their paws shaping tunnels, their bodies shaping futures. This was an age of trial, of endless experiments, of life testing what worked and what did not. And the failures were forgotten, but the successes endured. Written into the script of survival, the predators of this world kept the suspense sharp. Birds as tall as men stalked the plains, beaks sharp enough to crush bone, claws heavy as daggers. Mammals learned to scatter at the faintest sound, to vanish into cracks, to freeze in silence. But with every predator came a lesson, every chase a chance to adapt, and in adapting, they grew stronger. Survival was no longer about size. It was about cleverness, quickness, patience, traits that would one day reshape the earth. Imagine walking slowly through that night forest, the air filled with the smell of damp leaves and soil. You hear movement everywhere, but none of it is loud, none of it is thunderous. It is the soft language of a world rebuilding, of lives small and fragile, but unyielding. And as you listen, you realize the suspense is not fearful, it is hopeful. For every sound is a promise that life is continuing, that the shadows are not empty, but full of shapes waiting to be revealed. Did you know that in this time, mammals began to form bonds, not just living alone, but in groups, families, small communities? They huddled together for warmth. They guarded each other in the night. They raised their young with patience. This was their quiet secret, the reason they would succeed where others had failed. For in the end, survival is not just teeth or claws, but connection, care, and the courage to share life with another. And so, as millions of years passed, the shadows stretched taller, the shapes grew bolder, and the world that once belonged to dinosaurs began to tilt toward a new age, the age of mammals. But in these early years, the suspense hung heavy in every breath. Would they rise, or would they falter? Would another extinction silence them before their voices were heard? The answer, though uncertain, whispered through the leaves, through the stars, through the heartbeat of the earth itself, that life was not done, that the shadows were only the beginning. So now, as you lie in the quiet of your own night, let yourself imagine this long-ago suspense, the world in waiting, the mammals trembling but determined, the shadows slowly becoming shapes. And remember, just as they endured their night, so too do you endure yours. The dawn always comes, the small always grows, and from silence, the greatest stories are born. Have you ever wondered what happens in the gap between endings and beginnings? When the old world has crumbled, but the new one has not yet taken its place. That gap is never empty, something always fills it. And in the time after the dinosaurs, the world became a stage for the strange. Picture a vast plain under a pale moon. The grasses sway softly in the night wind, but the silence is broken by heavy footsteps. A shape moves in the darkness, towering, feathered, fierce. This is no dinosaur, yet it carries their echo. It is a bird, but not the kind you know. Its wings are useless, its body massive, its beak curved like a blade. This is a terror bird, and in this uncertain age, it ruled with shadows. The suspense of this world was unlike any before. The dinosaurs were gone, but danger still stalked every path. The terror birds hunted across open lands. Silent, swift, relentless, their gaze sharp as the moonlight, their strike as sudden as a falling star. And mammals, still small and timid, could only run, hide, and pray for silence. Did you know that some of these birds stood taller than a grown man? Their beaks strong enough to shatter bone, their legs carrying them across the land at terrifying speed. For millions of years, they were the top predators, rulers of the spaces the dinosaurs had left behind. They were not alone. Strange reptiles clung to rivers and swamps, descendants of ancient lines that had survived extinction. And in the oceans, sharks grew larger, darker, hungrier, as if the seas themselves had decided to claim dominion where the land faltered. Imagine walking through a twilight forest of that age, the air cool and damp, You hear a distant cry, not the song of a gentle bird, but something deeper, sharper, a hunting call. Echoing between the trees, the mammals freeze, their hearts racing. Every sound, every shadow becomes a warning, for in this age of strangeness, survival depended on silence, on never being noticed, on living small in a world that favored giants. And yet, the terror birds were only one chapter in this suspenseful tale. Other creatures too emerged. Some mammals themselves began to grow larger, testing the edges of possibility. Strange forms appeared: hooved grazers, clawed diggers, tusked foragers, each one an experiment. But for every success, there was a predator waiting. Every step toward growth was met with sharp eyes, sharp beaks, sharp teeth. Did you know that in South America, the terror birds reigned for nearly 60 million years? That entire ecosystems were shaped around their presence. Mammals learned to run faster, to leap, to scatter, but always the suspense of their survival carried the weight of a blade, ready to fall. Now picture the coastline at night. Waves crash softly under starlight, but in the water, shadows glide, sharks longer than buses, their fins cutting silently through the sea. They wait beneath the surface, the ultimate ambush, and when prey dared to enter the shallows, the ocean swallowed them whole. The land had terror birds, the water had its own monsters, and together they kept the age trembling. The suspense of this time was not only about survival, it was about transformation. The earth was experimenting wildly, filling the empty throne left by dinosaurs with new shapes, some strange, some terrifying, some fleeting. It was a world in flux, a stage where actors entered and vanished, leaving only fossils to whisper their parts. Imagine standing at the edge of a savanna, the stars gleaming above. In the distance, shapes move. Some are small, mammals darting between grasses. But then, rising above them, a massive shadow. A bird with a head like a hammer, its eyes locked on the ground below. You hear the sudden rush of its charge. The silence breaks with a cry, and just as quickly, the night swallows the sound again. This is the rhythm of the strange rain, brief bursts of terror, long silences of waiting, always waiting. Did you know that not all terror birds were hunters? Some scavenged, picking through the remains of others. Some may have even eaten fruits, yet the memory they left behind in bones and legends is one of fear. For in their shadows, survival meant constant vigilance, and mammals learned to adapt, not by size, not yet, but by cunning, by speed, by living always on the edge of danger. The oceans, too, carried their suspenseful rulers after the mosasaurs were gone. New giants rose, sharks of unimaginable size, some with teeth serrated like saws, their bite strong enough to crush bone in an instant. Every wave carried the possibility of death, every dive into the sea a gamble, and yet life continued. Fishes swam, whales would soon appear, but the tension in every tide was unmistakable. Predators lurked beneath, silent and endless. Now imagine lying beneath the stars of this strange world, the ground cool, the air thick with scents of grasses and ash. You hear distant cries, sudden rushes. You feel the earth still caught in suspense. The age of dinosaurs had ended, but peace had not yet come. This was the reign of the strange, an age of experiments, of predators with feathers, of oceans filled with shadows, of mammals still trembling in silence. Yet within this suspense was a secret, a quiet preparation for the dawn that would follow. For even as terror birds struck, as sharks circled, as reptiles lurked in rivers, the mammals endured. Each night they survived. Each generation they endured. They grew more skilled, more aware. The suspense was heavy, but it was shaping them, sharpening them for what was to come. The strange rulers of this in-between age would one day fall, and in their place the mammals would rise. But for now, the world belonged to shadows, to creatures both terrifying and wondrous. The reign of the strange. So as you rest tonight, let yourself imagine that suspenseful in-between, the time after an ending, before a beginning has fully arrived. A world filled with rulers you will never meet, beings half familiar, half ghostly, whose footsteps once shook the ground, whose cries once haunted the night. And remember, even in the strangest reigns, life is always preparing for the dawn, for change, for renewal. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to grow into a world not meant for you? To step out of hiding and into the open, knowing danger waits in every shadow. That is what the mammals faced as they began their quiet transformation. For millions of years, they had been small, secret, silent, but now something was changing. The first giants of fur were beginning to stir. Picture a valley under the pale glow of the moon. Grasses ripple like dark water, and moving through them a shape, larger than any mammal before, its body carried low, its back curved, its snout pressed to the ground, sniffing, searching. It is not yet a lion, nor a horse, nor a bear. It is something stranger, something forgotten, but in its size, in its daring, it carries the suspense of possibility. A question whispered into the night. Can the mammal step into the throne once held by dinosaurs? The predators of this age still watched, terror birds with hooked beaks, crocodiles lurking in rivers, snakes thicker than tree trunks. They waited for mistakes, for weakness, but the mammals had learned patience. They had learned silence, and now they were learning courage. Did you know that within a few million years of the dinosaurs' fall, some mammals had already grown as large as wolves, some larger still, grazers with heavy teeth, runners with swift legs, climbers with strong claws? They were no longer only shadows on the forest floor. They were beginning to claim the open fields, the riverbanks, the hills. Every step forward, a gamble. Every breath, a suspenseful defiance against the giants that still hunted them. Imagine yourself in that twilight meadow, the stars burning bright above. You hear a rustle in the grasses. Then a low snort, the shifting of weight. A mammal steps into view, its body thick with fur, its eyes gleaming softly in the starlight. It does not hide, not this one. It moves slowly, deliberately, its size itself a kind of shield. For the first time, a mammal is daring to walk the land with presence, to say, I am here. And though predators wait, the balance has begun to shift. The suspense of this age was not the thunder of dinosaurs. It was quieter, sharper, the slow tug of power between old rulers and new challengers. Each night carried the possibility of change. Each dawn revealed new shapes rising in the mist, and the earth seemed to watch, patient, curious, to see what would come of these experiments in fur and flesh. Did you know that one of the first great mammals was called Androsaurus? A creature with a massive skull, a predator that may have walked the plains like a shadow of doom, its body unlike anything alive today. Neither wolf nor bear, but something in between. It was proof that mammals were no longer only prey, that they too could claim the role of hunter, of ruler. The suspense in its eyes was the suspense of a world tilting toward change. And yet, not all giants were hunters. Some grew heavy bodies for grazing, others tested the water's edge, paddling into rivers and lakes, exploring the mysteries of the sea once again. They were experiments written in fur and bone. Some would vanish, forgotten by time, but others would endure. Stepping stones toward the future, Picture walking beside a river at dusk. The water glows faintly with starlight in the reeds. Something stirs, a creature rises, half mammal, half mystery, its feet webbed, its body sleek. It slips into the current silently, its shape foreign, its presence suspenseful. For the mammals were no longer confined to the land. They were beginning to test every corner of Earth, every possibility, every shadow where life could take root. The predators felt the shift to terror. Birds began to falter, their reign still fierce, but less certain. For every time they struck, more mammals survived, more grew, more adapted. Crocodiles and snakes continued their vigil. But the balance was no longer so one-sided. The mammals were learning not just to endure, but to thrive, and the suspense of their growth echoed through every forest, every meadow, every tide. Did you know that during this time, mammals began to evolve new strategies of life? Some grew faster, some grew smarter, their brains expanding, their senses sharpening. They began to cooperate, to move in herds, to raise their young with greater care. This was their secret weapon. Not just strength, not just size, but connection, memory, and learning, traits that would one day define them as rulers of the earth. Now imagine lying in that ancient valley, the sky wide above you, the air cool, the grass damp with night dew. You hear the movements of mammals all around, some small, still clinging to the old ways, others larger, daring, unafraid. The suspense is thick, for you do not know what these creatures will become, only that something new is being written in their bodies, something the world has never seen before. Every experiment carried risk. Some giants rose and vanished within a few million years, their bones buried, their stories silenced. But others left echoes that would never fade, hints of the horses, elephants, lions, and humans to come. The suspense of their age was the suspense of creation itself, of a world holding its breath as possibilities unfolded, each one fragile, each one uncertain, yet all of them necessary, for without these experiments, the mammals would never have risen. So, as the strange rulers of the in-between age began to wane, the mammals pressed forward, growing larger, braver, stranger, still hunted, still vulnerable, but no longer only shadows. They were becoming presence, becoming force, becoming the first giants of fur. And so tonight, as you rest in your own silence, let yourself imagine this suspenseful world, the earth holding its breath, the predators still circling, the mammals daring to step into the open, to test their size, their strength, their courage, every heartbeat an experiment, every breath a possibility. And remember, growth is always a risk, change is always suspenseful, but without it, no dawn can come, no future can rise, no giant can be born from the shadows. The world was no longer the same. The forests had thinned in places, New grasslands were stretching across the horizon. Rivers carved fresh paths through valleys, and the air seemed filled with quiet suspense, as though the earth itself was waiting to see which creatures would endure and which would be forgotten. The mammals had survived. They had grown. They had taken their first steps out of the shadows. But now came the greatest test. It was not enough to survive. They had to change. They had to experiment with form, with life, with the very rules of existence. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to live in a world where nothing is certain, where every step could lead to survival or disappearance? That was the reality of the mammals in this age. Each night carried the weight of suspense. Each dawn unveiled new shapes, new bodies, new ways of life. Some would vanish, leaving no trace. Others would spark lineages that continue to this very night. Imagine a plain beneath the glow of a half-moon. The grass whispers in the wind. A herd moves silently across the field. They are unlike any creatures you know today. Small bodies balanced on long, delicate legs, heads lowered to graze, their teeth grinding tough plants. They are the first hoofed mammals, the ancestors of horses, deer, antelope. But in this age, they are fragile experiments, testing whether speed and numbers can protect them, testing whether herds can stand against the hunters that still stalk the night. And in the distance, a shadow waits, a predator with heavy paws and glimmering eyes. Not yet a cat, not yet a wolf, but something in between. Its body low, its breath steady, it creeps forward. The suspense of the hunt sharp in the night air. The herd lifts its heads, ears flicking, muscles tensing, and in an instant they run. Their hooves drum against the earth, their speed their only shield, their lives balanced on the fragile gamble of evolution. Did you know that during this age, mammals began to spread into nearly every possible niche? Some became runners, some became climbers, some grew teeth for grazing, others for tearing. One lineage even slipped back into the sea, their legs shortening, their bodies streamlining, until one day they would become whales, masters of the ocean, born from the shadows of land. The suspense of their story was written in every ripple of water, every moonlit dive into the unknown. Picture the coastline under the pale starlight. Waves sigh against the sand, and something moves just beyond the surf. A creature with 4 legs and a long snout, its feet webbed, its body half adapted. It slides into the water with ease, then back onto the land with awkward steps. This is a pioneer, a mammal testing the oceans again. Drawn by fish, by safety, by possibility, it is neither land beast nor true whale, but a suspenseful in-between, a promise of what could come. If the gamble of evolution holds, not all experiments succeeded. Some mammals grew large, then vanished. Others shrank into obscurity. There were beasts with strange tusks, beasts with armored hides, beasts that climbed trees with wings of skin stretched between their limbs. Each one a question written into the night. Each one asking, can this form survive? Can this shape endure? The predators answered with teeth. The rivers answered with floods. The earth itself answered with shifting climates. Every experiment balanced on the knife edge of suspense. And yet, enough survived, enough changed, enough grew to carry the mammals forward. Imagine a thick forest under starlight, the air filled with the scent of damp leaves. You hear a rustle, then a call, soft and haunting. High in the trees, A mammal leaps, arms stretched wide, skin gliding like a shadow between branches. It lands, clings, pauses, its eyes shining in the dark. This is no ordinary creature. It is testing flight, a silent experiment of survival. Not a bird, not a bat, but something in between. Its fate uncertain, its presence suspenseful. And then, in the lowlands, another experiment unfolds. Heavy-bodied grazers chew through the night, their teeth grinding coarse plants, their bodies larger than before. They do not hide, they gather in herds. Their strength in numbers, but the night is never safe. For in the grass, the predators wait, and so the arms race continues. Hunter against prey, speed against patience, cunning against instinct, the suspense written into every chase, every heartbeat, every breath. Did you know that this was also the age when brains began to grow larger? Not just bodies, not just teeth and claws, but minds. Some mammals began to solve problems, to remember paths, to cooperate in ways the world had never seen before. This was their quiet weapon, invisible, yet powerful. A suspenseful shift that would shape all of history. The dawn of thought, of memory, of planning. Picture the night sky lit by 1,000 stars. A pack of mammals moves silently through the shadows. Their eyes gleam with intelligence. Their bodies small, but their cooperation vast. They hunt, not with brute force, but with patience, with strategy. Each member a part of something greater. This is the suspense of the future. The whisper of what would one day lead to wolves, to apes, to humans. But here it is fragile. A flicker of thought in a dangerous world. The suspense of this age was not just in size, not just in speed. It was in possibility. Every creature a gamble. Every shape a story that might vanish or endure. And the earth seemed to hold its breath. Watching these experiments play out under moonlight, under shadows, under stars, some nights were filled with silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a predator, the splash of a mammal testing the rivers. Other nights were filled with chaos, herds stampeding under attack, claws meeting flesh, the suspense of life and death written across the land. And yet, through it all, the mammals pressed forward, again and again, surviving, adapting, daring. So, as you drift deeper into rest, let your thoughts wander into this strange age, a world of hoofbeats and gliding shadows, of predators stalking and prey fleeing, of rivers hiding strange pioneers, and forests echoing with experiments that may never be seen again. This was the age of suspenseful transformation, the time when mammals risked everything to explore every shape, every role, every possibility. And though many vanished, enough remained, enough changed, to carry the story forward, toward lions and whales, toward elephants and humans, toward you, sitting here tonight, listening to the quiet echoes of their suspenseful beginning. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to walk into a forest at night, to hear the soft crunch of leaves underfoot, to know that somewhere unseen eyes are watching you? That was the reality for every creature of the ancient world, because this was the age when the hunters rose, when mammals stepped fully into the role of predator, shaping fear itself. The night had always belonged to danger, but now danger had sharper teeth, quieter steps, and a hunger that no herd could ever ignore. The suspense of life grew sharper with every moonrise. because now the mammals were no longer only prey. They had become the stalkers, the shadows, the killers of the night. Picture a cool plain under starlight. The grass sways gently. A herd of early horses grazes in silence. Their ears twitch at every sound. Every rustle feels heavy with meaning because they know, somewhere close, the hunters are waiting in the tall grass. You might see a flicker of eyes, a ripple of movement, a form crouched low, its breath steady, its patience endless. This is one of the first great predators of the mammalian age. Its body sleek, its teeth sharp, its mind honed for cunning. It waits and waits until the moment comes, and then it springs. The night explodes into chaos. Horses stampede, the ground shakes, and in the blur of dust and hooves, the predator strikes, suspense made flesh, a story written in every heartbeat. Did you know that the earliest mammalian predators were neither cats nor dogs? They were something older, something stranger. Scientists call them creodonts, beasts with heavy jaws and crushing teeth, their bodies shaped for pursuit, their strength. For millions of years, these were the rulers of the hunt, the terror of the grasslands and forests, before cats and dogs even existed. Imagine walking under the moon, the air cool against your skin. Suddenly, you hear the faintest sound, a low growl carried by the wind. The suspense freezes you in place. You cannot see it, but you know it is there, hidden, circling. Every creature of this age knew that fear. Every night carried it, because the hunters had come, and they were relentless. But the story of predators was not only about strength, it was about minds. Brains were growing larger, patterns more complex. Some predators began to hunt in groups, to use strategy, to use patience. This was no longer only the law of claws, it was the law of thought, the suspense of intelligence awakening in the shadows. Picture a pack of hunters beneath the stars, their bodies small compared to the giants of the past, but their cooperation immense. One circles to the left, another waits ahead. The herd senses danger, but cannot see where it will strike. And then the hunters close in, not with random force, but with a plan. The prey is surrounded, trapped by minds as much as by teeth. The suspense of the chase now woven with the suspense of cunning, and yet the balance was delicate. For every predator's rise, there was prey evolving to resist. Horses grew faster, herds grew tighter. Some learned to sense danger before it arrived. The arms race between hunter and hunted stretched across the millennia, a suspense that never ended, a struggle written into the very fabric of life. Did you know that even bears trace their lineage to this age? Not yet the lumbering giants of today, but small, quick hunters, balancing between predator and scavenger, testing both strength and patience. And from other lineages would come the first true cats, the first true dogs, shadows of the predators we know now. Their ancestors learning in silence, refining the suspense of the stalk. Imagine the edge of a forest, the light fading, the sky painted deep purple. From the trees, a low form emerges, its steps silent, its gaze fixed. It does not rush, it does not panic, it waits until the last light slips away, because night is its ally and silence its weapon. This was the poetry of the predator, a suspense both terrifying and beautiful. And in the rivers, suspense flowed too, For some predators turned their hunger to the water. Sharp-toothed hunters lurked along the banks, waiting for thirsty creatures to approach. The splash of hooves on water was an invitation, the darkness of the river. A perfect cover, one moment safety, the next a flash of jaws. The suspense of survival in every drop. Not all predators survived. Some vanished, their experiments lost to time. But others endured, refined by the chase, honed by the fear they inspired, until they became the ancestors of those who still walk the earth today. The suspense of their rise etched into every lion's roar, every wolf's howl, every bear's growl. So as you rest tonight, let yourself drift into that ancient darkness, a world where danger whispered from the grass, where shadows moved with purpose, where the night belonged to the hunters. Feel the suspense in the silence, the thrill in the waiting, the sudden rush of movement in your imagination. This was the age when mammals learned to stalk, to strike, to think, and though millions of years have passed, the echoes remain in every predator's eyes, in every prey animal's fear, in every heartbeat that quickens in the night. Close your eyes now and let the hunters fade into shadow, their suspense carried away on the wind, because though their story was filled with tension and danger, here, in your bed, you are safe, you are at peace, and you can let their whispers guide you gently into deeper sleep. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to leave the land behind, to slip beneath the waves, to surrender to the silence of the sea? Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient shoreline, the moon high above, the waves sighing softly against the sand. And just beyond the surf, something moves, something strange. A creature with legs, yet drawn to the water, eyes glimmering in the starlight, a body caught between two worlds. This was the beginning of one of the greatest experiments in the history of life, the suspenseful return of mammals to the ocean. For millions of years, mammals had survived on land. They had grown stronger, faster, sharper. They had become hunters of the plains, climbers of the trees, diggers of the earth. But some looked back toward the water, toward the place where life had begun, and they answered the call of the sea. Picture the first of these pioneers, its body long and slim, its legs strong but clumsy, webbed toes pressing against wet sand. It moves awkwardly on land, but when it slides into the water, the ocean embraces it. Its body glides more easily. Its limbs push against the current. Its snout breaks the surface for air. It is not yet a whale, not yet a dolphin, but something in between, suspense written in every step, every splash, every dive. Did you know that whales began their story as land animals? Creatures not unlike small wolves, with sharp teeth and curious minds. But slowly, over countless generations, their bodies changed, legs shortened, tails grew stronger, nostrils slid upward toward the top of the skull, and what once was a predator on land became a swimmer in the sea. The suspense of that transformation stretches across millions of years, a mystery written in bone and tide. Imagine a coastline bathed in silver light, waves rolling steady from the forest edge. A group of creatures emerges. They sniff the air, they step into the shallows. Their reflections shimmer beneath the moon. One by one, they slide into the surf, and for a moment, you cannot tell if they are wolves or seals. Their bodies awkward, their movements experimental. But in their eyes there is something else. A pull, a desire. The ocean has claimed them, and it will never let them go. Beneath the surface, suspense deepens. The world is vast, endless. Shadows glide through the water. Schools of fish twist and turn like liquid silver. Predators lurk in the depths, and these early swimmers must learn quickly to dive deeper, to swim faster, to breathe less often. Their survival depends on how well they can become creatures of the sea. And slowly they do. Some nights the ocean is calm. The stars shimmer on its surface like scattered diamonds. And these mammals rise for air, their breaths loud in the silence. Then they vanish again, down into the dark, into a world of silence, broken only by the beat of their hearts. And the echoes of movement, suspense lingers in every dive. For they are strangers here, and the sea is filled with danger. Sharks, reptiles, hidden hunters of the deep. Yet still they return again and again, because something within them has chosen this path. Did you know that some of the earliest whales still had legs? Not strong enough to run, but still there, dangling reminders of the land they left behind. Fossils tell us of creatures with hooves, creatures that gave birth on shore, but hunted in the sea, suspense in every choice, land or water, safety or risk, until at last the ocean won. The legs grew smaller, the bodies sleeker, the tails more powerful, and the land was left behind. Picture a twilight horizon, the waves glowing faintly with the last light of the sun. A massive shadow breaks the surface. Water sprays high into the air, the first true whale. Still small by today's standards, but vast compared to what came before. It glides with grace, its body built for the sea, its song low and haunting beneath the water. Suspense lingers in that sound. A question whispered across time. Will this lineage endure? Will this experiment succeed? The answer is yes. For whales would not only survive, they would thrive. They would grow into the largest creatures ever to live on Earth. Giants larger than any dinosaur, beings of strength and mystery, carrying the suspense of their long transformation in every breath they take at the surface, in every dive into the deep. But in these early nights, the story was not yet certain. Predators still ruled the seas, storms still shook the waves, the land still called to them, and each birth, each hunt, each journey into deeper waters was a gamble. Suspense hung heavy in the salt air, for the ocean can give life, and it can take it. Imagine floating in the dark sea, the stars hidden by clouds, the water around you vast and silent, and then below, you hear it, a sound, low and resonant, a call that vibrates through the water, the voice of an ancient whale, reaching across the blackness, reaching across the suspense of the deep. It is not a song of fear, but of connection, of a creature finding its place in the endless ocean. The suspense of this transformation was not only about survival, it was about belonging. These mammals were leaving behind one world and entering another. They were reshaping themselves to fit the sea, to master it, to become part of it. They began one of the most extraordinary stories of life on Earth. So as you drift tonight, imagine yourself standing on that ancient shoreline, the moonlight silver on the waves. You hear the surf, steady and soft. You see the shadows slip into the water, awkward at first, then graceful. and you realize you are watching history, the suspenseful return of mammals to the sea, a choice that would lead to giants, two songs echoing across oceans, two lives lived entirely beneath the waves. Let that image carry you now, the hush of water, the shimmer of stars, the suspense of creatures caught between two worlds, and the comfort of knowing that they endured, that their story carried forward, that it continues even now. When whales surface under the same moon you see tonight, and breathe and sing, and remind us that suspense and survival can shape wonders beyond imagination. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be the very first? The first to climb higher than others dare, the first to look down at the forest from above, the first to see not just danger, but opportunity. That was the reality of the early primates, creatures who carried in their small, fragile bodies the seeds of something vast, something suspenseful, something that would one day transform the world. The age of predators still lingered, sharp teeth in the night, claws in the grass, but high in the canopy. Another story was unfolding. Small mammals, no larger than your hand, moved among the branches, their fingers curling with delicate precision, their eyes wide, able to measure distance, able to judge leaps. And with those eyes came something else. The first whispers of awareness, the first suspense of thought. Picture the forest at dusk, the sky fading from gold to violet, the leaves rustling in the warm evening breeze. A tiny creature perches on a branch, its tail coiled for balance, its gaze fixed on a cluster of fruit glowing faintly in the last light. It pauses, hesitates, calculates, then leaps. Suspense fills the air as it flies from branch to branch, its hands reaching, its body swinging with grace. And when it lands, it begins to feed, but all the while, its ears flicker, listening for danger. Because the forest is alive with predators, and every choice is a gamble. Did you know that primates were among the first mammals to see the world with binocular vision? That is, both eyes pointing forward, creating depth, creating a sense of space. It allowed them to leap from branch to branch, to move with precision. But it also opened the door to something greater, to planning, to imagining, to seeing not just what was, but what could be. Suspense written not just in their movements, but in their minds. The forest canopy became their sanctuary, but also their test, because survival here meant more than speed. It meant memory. It meant knowing which branch was safe, which fruit was ripe, which shadow was danger. And slowly, across countless generations, the primates grew sharper, not just in tooth, not just in claw, but in thought. Their suspense was not only the chase, but the question of what might come next. Imagine a night beneath the stars, the forest alive with sound, insects buzzing, frogs calling, leaves shifting in the breeze. A family of primates gathers close on a high branch. They groom each other gently, fingers picking through fur, their eyes soft in the moonlight. It is more than survival. It is comfort. It is connection. It is the suspenseful beginning of social bonds, the very first steps toward trust, toward community, toward something that would one day shape human hearts. But the forest was never without danger. In the shadows below, predators still prowled, eyes glimmering in the dark, claws ready to climb. And so the primates learned another lesson, the lesson of warning, of calling out to one another, of raising alarm, a voice lifted in the night. carrying suspense through the trees, one sound saving many lives, one signal binding the group together. Did you know that the earliest primates already had opposable thumbs? That tiny shift of anatomy that allowed them to grasp, to hold, to carry. It seems simple, but in their hands was the suspense of the future, the ability to shape the world, to use tools, to create, though they did not yet know it, though they could not yet imagine it. Their fingers carried the secret of tomorrow. Picture a moonlit clearing, a fallen log glistening with dew. An early primate scampers down, sniffs at the wood, and with curious fingers pulls away a strip of bark. Beneath, insects scurry in the damp darkness. It pauses, then picks one up and eats. A small act, but an act of choice. An act of curiosity, the suspense of discovery, a flicker of the boundless exploration that lay ahead. As time passed, the forests became their kingdoms, and the primates grew bolder, leaping farther, feeding smarter, living not just as individuals, but as groups, families bound by trust, communities sharing warmth. Every night filled with the suspense of survival, but also the comfort of togetherness. It was a fragile balance, but one that gave them strength, and slowly, intelligence deepened, not only in the leaps of the body, but in the leaps of the mind. Some began to recognize faces, to remember paths, to solve problems, and with each new spark, suspense grew. Because intelligence is a double-edged gift, it brings safety, but also complexity. And from these tiny primates would one day come the greatest suspense of all. The suspense of human thought. Imagine the stillness of midnight in the forest. The stars hidden by thick leaves. A mother primate cradles her young close. The baby stirs, its wide eyes catching the shimmer of moonlight through the branches. It grips her fur tightly, trusting, dependent. This is the suspense of the future held in small hands. The bond of care, the echo of love, the first whispers of something profoundly human. Did you know that even in these earliest primates, the seeds of empathy were already present? They comforted one another, they shared warmth, they warned each other of danger, and in these small acts, the suspense of society was born, a thread that would stretch through time, binding communities, tribes, families, and eventually civilizations. The predators still struck, storms still fell, trees still collapsed under the weight of time. But through it all, the primates endured. Their suspenseful gamble paid in patience, in cleverness, in bonds that made them stronger together than apart. The forest was their stage, and their drama was not one of brute force, but of subtlety, of thought, of heart. So, as you drift into deeper rest tonight, picture the high canopy under starlight, branches swaying gently in the night breeze, tiny shadows leaping silently, eyes gleaming, fingers reaching. The first primates exploring their world, testing, thinking, caring, suspense written in every movement, every bond, every spark of awareness. This was the dawn of intelligence, the fragile, thrilling, suspenseful beginning of a story that would one day become your own. Let that thought carry you, the knowledge that from such small, uncertain creatures, a lineage of wonder began. From their suspense came curiosity, from their curiosity came thought, and from thought came the vast and mysterious story of humanity, a story that continues even now, here in your quiet night. As you listen and drift and dream, have you ever wondered what it feels like to watch the forest change around you? To see the trees grow older, the rivers carve deeper paths, the winds shift their direction, and yet know, in some quiet way, that you too are changing, that your body, your mind, your very way of being is becoming something different, something new. That was the silent rise of the apes. The world was warmer now, the forests stretching wide across continents, canopies tangled together in endless green, and in that living maze of branches, larger primates began to emerge. They were slower than the tiny creatures before them, but stronger, more deliberate, more watchful. Suspense hung in their every move, because the game of survival was no longer only about leaping and darting. It was about waiting, planning, choosing the right moment. Picture a dawn in the Miocene forest, the light soft and golden, spilling through the canopy. A young ape swings carefully through the branches, its arms long and powerful, its grip steady. It pauses on a limb, looking out across the treetops, its gaze deep, thoughtful, not just aware of the moment, but of the patterns, where fruit ripens, where rivals linger, where safety lies. This was more than survival. It was the beginning of strategy, the suspense of a mind learning to think ahead. Did you know that the earliest apes appeared more than 20 million years ago? And that they carried within them traits that would one day define humanity: flexible shoulders for swinging, powerful hands for grasping, eyes that studied and remembered, but most of all, the stirring of a mind that could reflect. They were not just reacting, they were anticipating. And in that anticipation lived suspense. The forest echoed with their calls. Low hoots rolling through the branches. Warnings, greetings, challenges. Communication grew richer, every sound carrying layers of meaning. The suspense of a hidden predator, the reassurance of a nearby friend, the dominance of a rival male, the invitation of a companion. And as their voices deepened, so did their societies. Imagine a group gathered in the high trees at twilight, adults grooming one another, children playing nearby, a dominant male perched at the center, chest broad, eyes scanning the shadows, every relationship balanced on trust and tension. A single misstep could spark conflict, a single gesture could restore peace. Suspense pulsed through their interactions, because survival was no longer just about claws and teeth. It was about alliances, friendships, loyalties, the unseen bonds that made the group strong, and yet danger still pressed at the edges of their world. A leopard slipping silently through the undergrowth, its golden eyes lifted toward the branches, waiting for a mistake, waiting for a young ape to stray too far. Suspense ran like a current through the trees, because every night was a test. Would the group stay vigilant? Would the watchers sound the alarm? Would the young survive to see another dawn? The apes grew heavier than their ancestors, some too large to leap with ease, so they developed patience. They climbed slowly, moved deliberately, hung from branches with their long arms, their suspense no longer in speed, but in power, in waiting until the right fruit ripened, until the rival grew careless, until the danger passed. They became creatures of calculation, of strength tempered with thought. Did you know that even then, apes showed signs of memory that stretched beyond the moment? They remembered where fruiting trees grew. They remembered which rivals were dangerous, which companions could be trusted, and in these memories was suspense. Because memory allows for anticipation, and anticipation creates the thrill of choice. The quiet edge between risk and reward. Picture a heavy rainstorm sweeping through the forest. The sky dark, thunder rolling, water pouring down the leaves. An ape family huddles close under the canopy, the young clinging to their mothers, the elders sitting still, patient. The storm passes, and in the dripping silence that follows, the group begins to move again. The suspense of nature's fury fading into calm, but leaving behind a lesson: to endure, to wait, to trust that the sun would return. Some apes grew larger still, massive creatures like Gigantopithecus, towering more than 3 meters tall, moving through the bamboo forests of Asia. Their size alone was enough to keep predators at bay. Yet even they lived with suspense, for size could not protect against change. And change was always coming. Forests shrinking, climates shifting, rivers drying. The suspense of survival never ended. At night, beneath the stars, the forest hummed with life. And in the high branches, the apes dreamed. We do not know what they saw in their sleep, but we know that their waking lives were already filled with imagination. The suspense of choosing paths, of testing bonds, of weighing dangers. They were not yet human, but they were no longer simple. They carried within them the seeds of reflection, the quiet suspense of a mind that could wonder. Did you know that many apes showed the beginnings of empathy? They comforted distressed companions. They shared food. They defended one another. And in those moments was the suspense of care. Because care is risk. To protect another is to endanger yourself. But it is also reward. It is the bond that ensures the group survives. And that suspense, the gamble of compassion, was as powerful as any claw or tooth. As the ages turned, forests rose and fell, rivers carved new paths, mountains shifted under the weight of time, and the apes endured. They became masters of balance, of patience, of watching and waiting. The suspense of their existence was not explosive, but steady, a long, drawn-out story of survival, of communities bound by silence, of intelligence deepening in shadows. So as you listen tonight, let yourself drift into that forest, the canopy swaying above you, the air thick with scent and sound, heavy arms carrying you from branch to branch, eyes sharp, thoughtful, aware of the dangers, aware of the bonds, living not just in the moment, but in the suspense of what comes next. That was the rise of the apes, silent, powerful, enduring, a story that stretched across millions of years, laying the foundation for everything that would come. And as you breathe slowly and drift deeper, know that within you too lives that ancient suspense, the patience to wait, the strength to endure, the awareness to anticipate. It has traveled through time, from the high branches of Miocene forests into your quiet night, here, now, as you listen, and rest and dream. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to let go of safety, to release the branch that has always carried you, to step down into a world open and exposed, where shadows stretch longer, where predators move more swiftly, where every sound could mean danger? That was the suspenseful choice faced by the first hominins. For millions of years, the canopy had been home, a world of swaying branches, hidden fruit, and watchful eyes. But the earth was changing again, forests shrinking, grasslands spreading wide beneath the sky, and the trees no longer touched one another in endless green. Now they stood apart, isolated islands of shade in seas of grass. The primates who became apes, and the apes who became hominins, had a choice: stay in the shrinking safety of the trees, or take the risk of the open ground. Picture a dawn on the African savanna, the horizon glowing red and gold, the air cool and sharp. A small group of apes gathers at the forest's edge. They hesitate, their fingers gripping bark, their eyes scanning the tall grass. They can smell fruit on a lone tree standing far away, but to reach it, they must cross open land, exposed, vulnerable, every heartbeat filled with suspense. Did you know that one of the first major adaptations of early hominins was bipedalism, the ability to walk upright on two legs? At first, it was clumsy, not the confident stride of modern humans, but a tentative wobble, a slow balancing act. Yet it gave them something new, the ability to see above the grass, to scan for danger, to spot food from farther away. Suspense etched into every step, because each step was both risk and possibility. Imagine one of the earliest Australopithecus, standing upright beneath the sun, its gaze sweeping the plain, the wind stirring the tall grass around it, every sense alert, every muscle tight behind it. The forest calls ahead, the open land whispers promise. This was the suspense of a threshold, the pause between one way of life and another. Life on the ground was perilous. Leopards, hyenas, crocodiles in the rivers. Each predator faster, stronger, more lethal than the fragile hominins. So how did they survive? Through caution, through community, through eyes watching in every direction, through calls that warned, through bonds that kept them close. The suspense of survival carried in cooperation. No one could endure alone. Did you know that fossil footprints found at Latoli in Tanzania, dating back 3.6 million years, show two hominins walking side by side, their steps pressed into soft volcanic ash, frozen in time, one taller, one smaller, perhaps an adult and a child, walking hand in hand across the plain. Suspense written not in fear but in care, in togetherness, in the courage to walk forward into the unknown. Picture that moment, the ash still warm beneath their feet, the sky heavy with clouds, the horizon stretching endless and uncertain. They leave behind the forest's edge, step by step, breath by breath, their path marking the beginning of a journey that would ripple through millions of years. And as the wind covers their trail, their suspenseful walk becomes memory, but memory that echoes into you tonight. Hominins began to explore new diets, no longer only fruit and leaves, but roots, seeds, and eventually meat. They cracked bones to reach marrow. They scavenged what larger predators left behind, a dangerous task, for the lion might return at any moment, or the hyena might already be near. Every meal carried suspense, a gamble between hunger and survival. And with food came tools, at first simple stones, used to break, to scrape, to cut. But even in their simplicity was genius, the suspense of invention. Because once you can imagine shaping the world, once you can see possibility in stone, you are no longer only surviving, you are beginning to create. And creation changes everything. Night on the savannah was filled with danger. the stars brilliant above, but the darkness alive with sound. Growls, rustles, distant cries. Hominins huddled together, their hearts racing. Suspense pressing close in the shadows. Yet, in that closeness, bonds deepened. They kept watch. They comforted the young. They endured until the first light returned. And slowly, their courage grew. Did you know that early hominins may have used fire before they could fully control it? Snatching burning branches from lightning-struck trees, carrying the flames back to their shelters. The fire crackling, casting light into the darkness. Predators holding back, eyes glowing just beyond the ring of firelight. Suspense shimmering between safety and danger, between control and chaos. The first dance with one of nature's most powerful forces. Picture yourself beside them, the fire warm on your skin, the sparks rising into the night. The group gathered close, faces lit with wonder, the forest behind, the grasslands before, and the shadows retreating. It was more than warmth. It was a symbol of daring, of adaptation, of suspenseful survival turned into discovery. The ground was not kind. The sun beat harshly. Water was scarce, and predators were always near. But through endurance, through cleverness, through community, the hominins persisted. Their suspense, not just the risk of each day, but the mystery of what they were becoming. And slowly, their minds opened wider. They began to see patterns, to learn the paths of animals, to time their foraging with the seasons, to anticipate, to plan. Suspense turned into foresight, and foresight turned into power. So as you listen tonight, let yourself imagine those first steps, bare feet pressing into the earth, eyes wide with both fear and wonder, the canopy fading behind, the open land stretching ahead, every heartbeat filled with suspense, every breath carrying the weight of change. This was the moment when the world widened, when survival became exploration, when risk became the path to transformation. And as you rest, know that within you lies that same courage, the same suspenseful step into the unknown, the same willingness to leave behind safety, to seek something greater. It has traveled through time, from the first hominins on the African plain into your own quiet night, here, now, as you breathe and drift and dream.